Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Get yourself comfortable and prepare for some interesting stories. One of them is a story about how OP ran away from his family, but later his brother decided to steal OP's car, and you won't believe what happened to all of them next. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I hope you'll enjoy it. I have an older brother, Dave, that has always been a jerk to me. There's only a 1-year gap between us, but he liked to beat me up when we were kids, and he always acted like anything that was mine was also his. He was also somewhat the golden child, which made me miserable. So no surprise I moved out at 18. My uncle is a now retired police officer, and he took me in after I left home. He even hooked me up with a decommissioned Crown Vic. I absolutely love that car. I don't know why, but Dave hated the fact I had that car. He drove 3 beater cars into the ground while my Crown Vic kept chugging along. Well, after his 3rd beater finally died, when he drove it into a pole, he asked to borrow my car. I had a bad feeling and said I wasn't gonna do that. He called me entitled and said he needed a car to get to work. I told him to take the bus because I know how he drives, and my Crown Vic was off limits. My parents called me after that and told me just lend him the car. I said I won't, no matter what they say. I rely on my car and need it as well since it's my personal transportation. Dave wasn't the only one in the world with a job he needed to get to. My uncle congratulated me for standing up to them and gave me a high five. A few days later when I got off work, the car wasn't where I parked it. I called my brother's cell, but he didn't pick up. Then I called my parents and asked them if he took my car. They denied it, so I said I was gonna call the cops, and then they admitted he'd borrowed it because he needed it. I told them he better bring it back right now or I'll have the police looking for him. They called me a jerk and then phoned Dave to bring my car back. He showed back up in the parking lot in my car 20 minutes later. I demanded to know how he stole my car, and he held up a set of police Crown Vic keys he'd bought online. Some were made universal. I told him if he ever stole my car again, I'd have him arrested. He then had the audacity to ask for a ride home. I told him he made me wait in the December cold after stealing my car so he could walk. He called me an idiot before I drove away. After that, my uncle installed a tracking device in the car. When Christmas Day came, I was celebrating with family like every year. The roads were cold and icy, so I had to be very careful while driving. By now you're probably clued in on the title. Yeah, Dave borrowed my car again during the Christmas party. Apparently he decided he was gonna go pick up a friend and figured I wouldn't notice. But I did when I looked out the front window and saw my car was missing. I pulled up the tracking app and saw he was a few miles away, then called his cell to yell at him. Everyone in the party saw this and asked what was going on. I said Dave stole my car again, and my uncle confirmed it wasn't the first time. Dave told me over the phone to screw off and he'd be back soon. I said he better not have been drinking, but he just hung up on me. While I was watching the tracker app, the dot stopped and didn't move for a while. Soon, we got a panicked call from Dave asking for help. He'd crashed the car because he couldn't handle the icy roads and he wasn't used to the rear-wheel drive of the vehicle. So we piled in my parents' minivan and followed the tracker. We found Dave by the road in my Crown Vic, nose deep in a snow-filled ditch. My uncle was furious as it was formerly a car of his department, and I was mad as heck at Dave for stealing my car again. My parents wanted me to let it go, but I said enough was enough and I was gonna call the police. Dave begged me not to because he really had been drinking before he set off and would get a DUI. I said he was gonna pay me back for my darned car then or I'd sue him. Well, as luck would have it, police were already aware of the accident and were driving to check on the scene. Someone else had called them, I guess. My parents tried to say that I was the one driving the car and they were just there to help me. I said that wasn't true, and my uncle backed me up. In fact, One of the cops that was there recognized my uncle, and they had a chat. Then they went to Dave and asked to see his license, which I then found out was suspended after he crashed his previous car. Then they breath tested him. He wound up with cuffs slapped on his wrists while my mother was crying and begging the police not to take him away. But the officer just said that she and my dad could get arrested too for lying to the police. That shut my parents up, and we got back in the minivan. The Christmas party was ended early, and my parents drove me and my uncle home since he rode with me. They didn't say much to either of us the whole drive, and just sped away as soon as we were out of their van. They nearly slipped off the road themselves doing that. My brother was let out of jail the next day, and he looked so scared that he was practically crying. The cops there had roughed him up a bit while talking about prison, etc. David actually urinated himself during that, and they let him take a shower. That's when my uncle started cracking up and revealed to us that his friends in the department had never filed the DUI, and just the charge for the suspended license, which was about a $600 fine. My uncle said he just wanted to teach Dave a lesson, and this would be the one and only time he'd ever get his help. Dave then apologized to me and said he'd pay to have my Crown Vic fixed and would never touch it again. When it got pulled out of the ditch, the front end damage was actually minor. It needs a new front bumper, a headlight, and grille. The damage was just superficial, thankfully. My parents have pretty much glossed over the whole incident and act like it didn't happen. Dave gave me the extra Crown Vic keys he'd bought online and said this has taught him a lesson he won't soon forget. Update. My brother promised he'd pay for the damage to my car, and he kept that promise. The body shop guy cut me a deal at a fair price for replacing the damaged front end parts on my Crown Vic. He just asked if I cared whether or not they were OEM. I told him I didn't care if they were OEM as the car is far from new and I didn't need the bill to get too high. I thought that the damage was only cosmetic, but there is some minor damage the body shop will need to pull out. But it's not frame damage and is an easy job to straighten out as they told me. There was some minor damage to the fender panels, but they said they're an easy fix, especially since I don't care that they aren't perfect. And now the new parts will be painted in matching color, so that's good. My brother willingly paid in cash advance to the body shop after getting the quote from them. He seemed all too eager to hand the money over and politely bid me goodbye. I won't say how much it was, but it definitely hurt his savings, especially after the fine he had to pay for driving without a license. He was wanting to get a replacement car, but he won't have one until his license suspension is over anyway. And I don't know when that'll be, but I think it's gonna be a good while. Anyway, my parents had given my brother a ride to the body shop, and as soon as he was out the door, they stayed and admonished me for making him spend all his money fixing my car. I imagine they were about to say something about how I should just have lent my car to him to begin with, and how all this would have been prevented if I had. But something in me snapped and I cut them off, and that's when it spilled out. I called them out on everything that came to mind. All the favoritism, how they act like my brother has always been more important, how I had to move in with my uncle just to escape their unfair treatment, how they let my brother steal my car and then tried to lie to me until I threatened police. How they themselves tried to lie to the police by saying I was the one driving when my brother crashed my Crown Vic, and so much more. And I ended it all with saying how stupid it was that they were mad at me for making my brother pay for the damage he caused by stealing my car on Christmas Day, and driving it without a license while intoxicated. By the time I finally stopped, I was nearly out of breath. My mother was crying. My father was red in the face and looked like he was about to explode. Then he just took my mother by the hand and started to walk out. But some guy I don't know that was sitting near the door blurted out, "You guys are narcissists!" Well, that was enough to set my father over the edge as he started attacking the guy. My father is not a small man, and he knows how to throw a punch. So he started beating the crap out of the poor guy like a mad gorilla. I yelled for the clerk to call the cops, and they did. My father heard that and bolted out the door and drove off. He actually left my mother behind, crying, in the lobby. Police had to pick him up at home, and he surprisingly cooperated when he was arrested. But he's looking at charges for assault. The guy he beat up suffered a very swollen black eye and possible broken nose and concussion. I was there when they were loading him into the ambulance to get him to the hospital. My mother has called me crying and blaming herself. My uncle is saying it was about time my dad tasted some karma, and my brother is doing everything he can to stay out of it. This is not how I thought this was all going to go down. Well, this might make me sound like a really petty and cruel person, but if I had been you and had been called up by Mom who were crying and saying everything was her fault, I'd have said, yeah it is, and hung up. Hopefully your brother learns from all this, and good on you for standing up for yourself, and for calling them out on everything they've done, letting them know that you won't let it slide. Glad your car is getting fixed too. I had an older brother who died in 2014. He was the older brother any girl wanted, and we were close. He taught me valuable lessons in life, such as cooking, driving, and never giving up. Showed me anime manga, would go on little road trips, and we would flat out ignore our parents' favoritism with my younger brother. Sadly, he died when a shooting happened. He was not a criminal, he was only eating, and it happened, and there was an investigation. The police found he was not involved in any illegal activity. One of the bullets killed him instantly. He was only 25, and I was 19 in 2014. I would lie if I said I didn't fall into a deep depression. It came to the point where I stopped eating and lost around 55 pounds in a month and a half. After his passing, I only drank water and milk. That would fill me up. I didn't want to get better until one day my former sister-in-law called me to tell me he left me some things. I met up with her, and the stuff he left behind was an album with Polaroid pictures of our crazy adventures, graphic anime tees, and a chain with both of our initials. I was in tears and decided to get help because he would love to see me happy and not die of sadness. It's been years since his passing, and I am doing a lot better. And I have a tradition that on his birthday I would leave flowers in his grave. I only stay 2 minutes, then leave after singing him happy birthday. My therapist said this was a good idea. However, my parents, younger brother, and aunt decided to have an intervention, thinking religiously that I was doing something satanic, that I was calling out the dead, that they should have thrown the things he left me in the garbage, and that I should attend to their church to see if the Lord gets those diabolical ideas out of your head. I was shocked and told them I won't stop doing this tradition, and I won't be attending to their church, that this is their oldest son, and that if they keep behaving like this, I won't feel bad at all for having to go to NC with them. They kept on yelling at me, and my aunt went as far as to throw holy water at me. I had it, and told them when they stop being religious nuts, we'll talk, but as of today, I want nothing to do with them. I left before any of them could say anything. It's been a week since the incident, and I have blocked their numbers. I just saved myself from toxic family members, and I won't go back there, ever again. Good for you. There is absolutely nothing wrong with your tradition. It's really sweet. And the fact that your family, his own parents for that matter, think you singing happy birthday to your brother is satanic is beyond mind-boggling. I mean, I honestly just can't with people who come up with such deluded conclusions. It's definitely not satanic in any way, shape, or form. To add some context, my parents are so crazy, to the point where me and the majority of my family had to cut them off. For me personally, my dad completely, and my mom calls on occasion. My mom also tries to overstep, such as inviting him to family events he's specifically not invited to. The reason is, He tries to steer every conversation and attempts to talk about himself. People usually don't care or want to hear them when he argues with people, threaten their lives. And she purposefully does this things knowing they'll cause an argument, and she gets joy out of it. So needless to say, sane people don't want these issues in their lives. My dad is delusional and narcissistic to the point where he thinks he's famous and claims everyone runs up to him for pictures and says he's famous and someone he knows is making a movie about him. Lies about it, obviously, because no one has ever seen this, and it's a running joke. People laugh at him. He thinks it's with him, not at him. He's lost all of his friends due to this poor behavior, such as arguments, belittling, non-stop phone calls. But to the story of his lies and delusions. I have an apartment, and I didn't give him my address because we aren't on speaking terms. And threatened my life because I wouldn't give him my personal info so he could take out loans in my name. Like, that's an obvious no. Also, I didn't grow up with him, so I barely know him. He has apparently told people he has an apartment, mine, that he lets his daughter, me, live in. This is what I've been told. He likes to pretend to be a big shot. So I guess he told some people who needed a place to live they could stay at his spare apartment. He got my address from a family member. I assume my mom due to the fact that no one I know speaks to him. One day I get a call from my apartment building manager saying there's some people at the gate saying they're here to move into your unit. Is this correct? I was just as confused as she seemed, as well as the people he sent to live at my place. He somehow thinks it's his place. Mind you, it's my place. I pay the bills, and I didn't even know he knew my address. So I go out to meet these said guests, as there was so much confusion. These 3 people, 3 random, sketchy, older-looking men. Side note, I would at most let a friend stay a few nights if needed, not random strange men. I ask what's going on. My building manager stayed because she wanted to know what's going on and wanted to help sort it out. And she would also know who's moving in and out because she's in charge of leasing and the building isn't that big. We all know each other. The 3 men proceed to tell me they're moving in their place. We're here for the keys. You're his daughter, right? He said you'd be out by the time we got here and the keys would be at the front desk. We all looked and I said, "Do you see a front desk?" I asked to see what was the address. We thought maybe wrong address. Nope, my address. So the guy said your dad said he kicked out cause he said you're freeloading and he had you leave the keys at the non-existent front desk. By this time all 5 of us were confused, but they had my address. I said he doesn't even have my address, so I don't know how he got it. By this time they're trying to call him to sort it out. He's not answering at the moment. So I explained to them, I don't know how you or he got this address. I haven't spoken to him in about a year, and I don't know how I'm freeloading, or what he's told you, but this is my place. I don't know what's going on. You'll all need to figure it out with him, but I have no place for you. Sorry. They tried to get me to call him. I said no, and calling won't change anything, and this isn't my prop, so I can't help you. By the way, they didn't seem threatening. It was just random and weird for all. I hear one guy on the phone talking to my dad. I hear him telling him she's lying, etc. Ask her to show you the lease. At this point, me, one of the guys and my building manager are all looking like this is odd, and he looks embarrassed. My manager stepped in at this time luckily. She told the men, you all must have the wrong place. She's on the lease, the only one. You'll have to leave and sort it out. I can say, despite them looking sketchy initially, they were as calm as could be in their odd situation. Because in all honesty, the only fault they had was believing my dad. They thought they were moving into an apartment for free. If I was in that situation, I wouldn't be happy either. After apologizing and before leaving, I heard one of them saying, I knew something was up. He always lying. I asked, what did he tell you? One of the men said he told me he had a spot for him to move in, all furnished, and paid up for the rest of the year. I kicked my daughter out because she's freeloading, but claimed he couldn't get out of the lease. I said something like, well, like your friend said, he is a liar. I don't know how, why, or what made him do this. I never gave him my address. He isn't on the lease. I don't even talk to him, so I'm sorry, but hope it all works out. I don't know what my dad thought would happen, but like I said, he's delusional. He probably assumed all he was saying was true. Or maybe he assumed there was a front desk, and whoever was at the front desk would just magically let 3 random people in. And I'd have no say. It's all so crazy, I can't even attempt to understand. There's no use, LOL. Also, I told my manager thanks, and if anyone ever comes when I'm not home, please give me a call or call 911. If I have a guest coming in, I'll be home to greet them. You may want to get the police involved over this. This is dangerous, and lucky for you these men were reasonable. However, now that he has your address, there's no telling what kind of stunts this man will pull. He sounds unstable and unpredictable. What if he pulls this crap again, and the next group takes it out on you? Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about an OP's mother who disowned OP, and they didn't see each other for 19 years. And now OP received the most ridiculous email from her. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.